Why was the Cold War a big deal in the 1980s? Imagine a world where the threat of nuclear war hangs over every day, and nations are locked in a tense game of chess with global stakes. That was the 1980s during the Cold War. This period was a huge deal because it shaped how countries interacted, how people thought about safety, and even how they collected memorabilia. The Cold War was not just about politics. It was about fear, power, and the hope for peace. In the 1980s, the United States and the Soviet Union were the two superpowers, and their rivalry affected everything. The Cold War was a state of political and military tension, but they never fought directly against each other. Instead, they fought through proxy wars, espionage, and a massive arms race. The fear of nuclear conflict was real, especially after the Cuban Missile Crisis in the early 60s. By the 1980s, the tension was at its highest since then. The Soviet invasion of Afghanistan in 1979 made things even more intense. The United States responded by boycotting the 1980 Moscow Olympics and supporting Afghan fighters resisting Soviet forces. This move ended a period called détente, where both sides tried to ease tensions. Instead, they ramped up their military buildup. President Ronald Reagan called the Soviet Union the evil empire and increased defense spending. He introduced the Strategic Defense Initiative, often called Star Wars, which aimed to develop missile defense systems. The United States also deployed new nuclear missiles in Europe, making everyone worried about nuclear war. But the 1980s were also about change. Mikhail Gorbachev became the leader of the Soviet Union in 1985. He wanted reform and introduced policies called glasnost, which meant openness, and perestroika, which meant restructuring. These reforms helped improve relations with the West and led to important agreements like the 1987 Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, which eliminated some nuclear weapons. The Cold War started to wind down with events like the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989. That wall symbolized the end of the division between East and West Germany and the collapse of communist regimes across Eastern Europe. By 1991, the Soviet Union dissolved, officially ending the Cold War. For those who grew up in the 1980s, the Cold War was everywhere. It influenced movies, music, fashion, and even video games. Spy stories, nuclear fears, and political conflicts were common themes in pop culture. Collecting items like posters, toys, and memorabilia from that era helps keep the memories alive. Understanding why the Cold War was such a big deal helps explain the mood of the decade, full of both fear and hope, and why sharing this history with new generations keeps the spirit of the 1980s alive.